Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the CBS Arena, where I am sideways and Norwich City have taken a point. Let's do that, and hopefully it all resets itself. Good. Let's hope it stays like that. Welcome to the CBS Arena. Norwich City definitely in the realms of point gained over two dropped here this afternoon. They have somehow left with a point, and had it have been for probably a Harry Darling clearance and a couple more minutes, they could have left here with all three this afternoon, which, I think someone would have had to have called in some kind of investigator, because that would have been complete daylight robbery from the way this game transpired and how it unfolded here in the Midlands, because Norwich City for so much of this game had their backs to the walls, had to suffer, had to ride their luck, so much last-ditch defending. Coventry had so many efforts at goal, so much territory, so much possession. They were by far and away the better team on the afternoon. On a different won this game probably would have done had it not have been for some more heroics from Vladan Kovacevic. But yes, it has ended 1-1. And I think in the round, and we will look at this purely on a results basis first and foremost, it is hard to look at that as a result here and feel like it is anything other than a really good one from a Norwich City perspective, considering the context of the performance. Norwich were nowhere near their best level. And Coventry are a top team and really impressive the way they came out of the traps. And we'll dissect the game in a moment. But the quality of team, the momentum of this place. It's the fullest I've seen this place, the most atmospheric I've seen this place. And, I think there'll be a lot of Coventry fans at home tonight feeling very hard done by that they haven't taken all 3 points from this game, and understandably so. But look, in isolation, irrespective of performance, context, anything that unfolded over the last 90 minutes or so, it's a good point for Norwich City to come away to Coventry, to remain unbeaten away from home as well. And to continue just to chip away. I think it's important in the Championship that you just chip away and you just consistently tick over. And that's kind of what they're doing at the moment without really being extraordinary. And I think at this point where they're building, when they're gelling, when there's lots of new players kind of adapting and all of those different aspects, sometimes that can be a really understated skill. Even when you're not at your best, to kind of take points and remain in games is a positive. So that's the result. Let's dive into the game itself and how it unfolded. Then Norwich unchanged from that win at Blackburn, same formation, same system. Chris Gorin and Sargent up front. A few changes on the bench. No Amy Marcon. There's no Jose Cordoba. Theo Adelusi, I mentioned him because he won't get another one. 18 years old on the bench from the academy. Brilliant to see him involved in that lineup and in that matchday squad today. Unfortunately, couldn't mark it with a win, and definitely wasn't called upon. But a really good experience for him to come and experience and embrace this today from a Norwich City perspective. So that's good. Opening one change for Coventry in the wide area. Thomas Asante replaced by Sakamoto, who's always very good every time I see him play. And the first 20 minutes, Norwich were under the cosh. Coventry came out so lively, so energetic. They were creating overloads in midfield. Norwich were really struggling with their right-hand side. We'll come on to that again in a moment. And constructed a lot of opportunities. The best of those across from Sakamoto that he put right onto the head of Mason Clark, and he just glanced it off the post. But otherwise, Norwich were in a deep block, having to suffer, having to take punches, having to defend, having to clear, not seeing much of the ball, not really be able to create many patterns of play or get themselves up the pitch, be that through kind of direct play or just in terms of keeping possession. Again, probably a theme throughout the afternoon. But they did soak it up, they did survive it, and then actually at the other end, they began to feel their way into the game from that point. And prior to them scoring, there was an opportunity. Sinats sort of ran from out to in. Lovely reverse pass to Sargent. Kind of got broken up on its way to him and nearly fell for Diallo. Rushworth was quick off his line. And then the very next attack that Norwich had is brilliant from Jakov Medic to read the danger, to step in, to win the ball, and then to be so proactive. It's a lovely pass, almost a midfield splitting pass. I mean, he's revealed post-game he used to be a number 10 in his youth, and it was a pass you would associate with one of those. Brilliantly picked out, brilliantly weighted, and then it's all about Chris Gorin. And that first touch is just exquisite, to almost shift it from his right to his left away from the defender. Looked like the opportunity had gone, but he stayed cool, and it's an excellent finish. I think it did take a slight deflection into the back of the net, and I think we've probably just been waiting for him to back up what's been some good cameos, some good moments with a goal, a moment in front of goal. And that felt probably like with the exception of a couple he had in the Southampton Carabao Cup game, which he sort of snatched at a little bit. That's the best chance that he's had. And at this end here, he took it with real aplomb and put Norwich ahead. Forget against the run of play. It was completely, it was as against the run of play as I've ever seen, because at that point, Norwich was so under the cosh. Coventry was so productive in the way that they played, the way that they attacked. and the way that they just dominated this game really from start to finish. And from there, and again, this is where context is key. I think it felt like from there really Norwich were trying to manage the game. There was yellow cards for time wasting, half an hour in, Kovacevic as well. But they did it. They survived it. And actually, the more the game wore on, it kind of felt like the more comfortable they were from a defensive perspective. And for as much as we can bemoan the performance, and we will talk about the areas that they didn't get right. The sheer amount of work that the two at the back got through today. Jakov Medic, I thought it was comfortably by streets his best game in a Norwich City shirt. Again, he agreed with that assessment post game. Harry Darling, it's a shame what happened at the end because I thought he was tremendous. Vladan Kovacevic again with some brilliant saves to bail Norwich out. And again, Callum Fisher, I thought had a really kind of Jekyll and Hyde performance, probably through no fault of his own. So there was some good individual bits in there, which is what I want to highlight. And it's not a result that Norwich haven't worked hard to earn, but I think on another day it could have been, and probably it should have been this afternoon, very, very different against a Coventry team, a team that, again, similarly to Middlesbrough, similar to Millwall, have got a really nice continuity about them. They've got a real momentum since Frank Lampard's been in the building. They were very, very close. They're probably the better team over two legs against Sunderland as well. All of that contextually you have to throw in here, but Norwich were nowhere near the levels I think Liam Manning would want them to be, and he said as much candidly post game in terms of, they defended too deep for too long, and then just didn't have the quality in possession to kind of help relieve that pressure. And as soon as they were on the ball, it was like a hot potato, and it was either a long ball forward just to try and move themselves up the pitch, or it was trying to play out, and they just got caught, I think, a little bit as well in those aspects. But actually, when they did get out, and when they did have those moments where it was Sargent, Chris-Gore and Diallo, who, again, I didn't think had his best game, but when they got kind of exposed against that Coventry backline, they looked threatening. They looked like there was possibilities to create something, but they were so few and far between as the game unfolded this afternoon. Norwich just didn't create enough of those moments. The only other real chance of note I can think of is in the first half, where Chris-Gore again does really well to find a little pocket of space, takes possession, finds Sargent. It's a lovely touch, and he just puts almost too much onto the shot. But I'd like to see Josh Sargent's touch count, because I can imagine he touched the ball very few times, and it's frustrating. I get that, because you look at the attacking talent that Norwich have at that end of the pitch, and they're just really struggling to connect it, I think, in terms of the way that they're playing at the moment. And, you just hope with time some of those connections will build, because it was a tough watch at times today. There's no pretending otherwise. And it was last-ditch defending, and it was quality saves in the second half that ultimately has meant we're standing here talking about a point, because otherwise on a different day Norwich could have lost this game and lost it pretty comfortably and couldn't really have had any complaints that they did so. So for me, it's the possession, it's the attacking elements that are the big ones at the moment, where I'm looking at and seeing there's a real need and a quick need for improvement as well. I think that midfield setup, you look at it today, Coventry had three, and when Sienats is tucked in and all of this kind of stuff, and then McLean goes and tucks in defensively as well, they can be so exposed in the middle of the pitch. And the central shape, they get a lot of bodies in central area from a defensive perspective. That I think Coventry at one stage had 17 shots today and none on target, and that is again reflective of what they've done from a defensive perspective. But I just want to see a bit more from an attacking perspective, and you hope with time and as these connections grow and as this team grows, that will grow with it. Because at the moment, it's a struggle really to see discernible patterns of play and rhythms to what they're trying to do in possession and from an attacking perspective. And that is now the layers that they need to add heading into this next block of championship games for me. And if they do that, then they're going to be a far more polished team. That first half, again, I think the struggles, you looked at Mason Clark, I thought was so dangerous, so deadly today. And in part that was from his performance and how lively he was and how energetic he was. But equally, it was probably symptomatic in the first half of Norwich's right side struggling. And Callum Fisher was left exposed against him and struggled. And that's not his fault, I don't think, because considering, if he might as well have been on an island, such was the lack of support. And it felt to me from a kind of tactical perspective that Sienats was kind of being sent inside to go and press Liam Kitchen, which then when Coventry bypassed that, it almost felt like De Silva and Mason Clark had a 2v1 at every opportunity. And if you're a defender trying to defend against that constantly with that constant overload, it's difficult. It's nearly impossible. And actually, I think as the game wore on, I thought in the second half, yellow cards, I think many people probably in that away and certainly in the press box would have, spoken about making changes on that right side in personnel, in substitutions. Liam Manning didn't. And I think it's a credit to Kellen Fisher and also to Antti Sinas as well, because I thought in the second half, in particular, Kellen Fisher was superb and didn't put a foot wrong and was a lot more competitive and felt like he was in a better structure. And even when he moved to left back, I thought it was a really gritty, hearty performance from him after what was a very difficult first half. And that growth is really good to see in terms of, as a young player, having that little bit of adversity, having to deal with a winger that has beaten you 1, 2, 3 times, but actually to stay in the game, to stay there, to stay competitive and to work that problem out is a sign of what a good young player Norwich City have got there. And it's a testament to Kellen Fisher. As I said, I thought Jakov Medic was outstanding. Harry Darling, I thought, was outstanding as well before clearly that last moment. But I think it was just tired minds, really, when it came to it. It was a cross that got cut back in. He did really well to snuff it out. And then it felt to me like that next touch needed to be the clearance. Instead, he took an extra one. And I think just tired mind, tired body. He'd been down before that with cramp and just could not get, and you could almost see it unfolding in slow motion. As soon as he took that touch, Sims was alive to it. He was alert to it. He nicked the ball off him and Hadji Wright put the ball into the back of the net. And it was a shame because of the amount of work that Norwich had put in. Vladan Kovacevic made an excellent save from a corner where he had to, the ball kind of, I'm not sure how he got there, but it kind of popped out of a real body of players in the penalty area and he had to push it around the post. There was another one low ball in and I think it was Thomas Asante who got on the end of it. And again, he's had to make a superb stop to bail Norwich City out. There's some crosses that he took to relieve pressure. He was excellent today in his performance, and clearly it's an absolute sucker punch at the end. But again, it's not one that I think Norwich can have too much complaints about. And actually, it felt very similar to me, this game, as to when we were here a couple of years ago under David Wagner, where Norwich took the lead. I can't remember who scored that day. Might have been Kieran Dowell, I think, from memory. And they had to ride out a lot of pressure. And in the end, it was an own goal from Ben Gibson at that end. After a really sort of heavy period of pressure from Coventry. And look, Norwich managed the game. There was so many stoppages, so many injuries. There was a lot of frustration in this place. I felt they probably went a little bit too far in the way they did that. In truth, it's probably those actions that led to the added on minutes. And there's a balance to be struck. You look at, for example, that win at Watford where they probably got the balance spot on. And look, maybe it's some of this is always filtered through the end result. But equally, I did think probably there was just a little bit too much of that game management in the final stages to try and get themselves across the line. And ultimately they were punished for that. But look, it's a good result and a bad performance. I think if you'd have offered most of the 2,700 Norwich fans a point before they walked into the CBS Arena today, I think most of them probably would have taken it, given the way Coventry have started the season, how free-flowing they've been in the goals that they've scored. And equally where Norwich City are in their respective journey, you can see it, a team that's played together for a long period of time, that has those connections, that has that momentum behind it against a team that is very new and is learning. And yeah, Norwich played better against Middlesbrough, they played better against Millwall, they played better in portions at Blackburn, and so particularly Middlesbrough, I think they've come away probably with the point that maybe they could have got there. But look, it's an interesting one. I think a point on the road in the Championship always feels like a productive result, irrespective of how it's earned. And I think it's hard not to compare that to last year, where Norwich did win here last year in similar circumstances. They had to roll with the punches. They had to withstand a lot of pressure and kept a clean sheet. And it was Borja Sainz's goal in the second half that won them that game. But I think if you'd have put that team in this situation, it feels like they probably would have succumbed a lot earlier than they did. So to not be at your best and to have that commitment to defending and that level of want and will to throw your body in front of the ball has to be regarded as a positive, and probably speaks volumes to the culture that they're building, because I think that collective want and will to defend is about mentality and all of those kind of intangible elements that we associate with football teams. Now we need to see a bit more tactical progression from this side, that actually they can control games better. They can change the ebb and flow of games, it feels like, and it's felt like this probably in most games this season, really, where they've just not, once the game's run away from them, they've really struggled to pin it back, and that is the issue. You look at the performances and it's been patches and periods. We haven't seen a full performance. We haven't seen that level of ability and rhythm in possession that I'd like to see from this Norwich City team. And again, you just hope, we're still at an early point in the season, you hope that will come with time and as these players get used to the conditions, and some of them are doing that. But it's just that need to connect things a little bit better, because at time today it was it was pretty desperate in terms of their play on the ball. And if you do that, you make life difficult for yourself, and you are going to have to defend, and you are asking your goalkeeper to constantly bail you out, your defenders to constantly block. And when you go into the 97th minute of the game, having done the volume and committed to the volume of defending that Norwich City had done over that period, it's probably not a surprise that they relented, that they were unable just to get that over the line. And that will be the frustration today, because if they were better on the ball and if they had those attacking moments, they would have been able to win that game, I think, and probably get it over the line. And albeit against a very good team. So that's probably my assessment. Good result, poor performance. But equally, to get a point here when you're not at your best, I think is not a bad thing to reflect upon, really. And as I said, it's just about chipping away. And equally, let's dream in a world next week where they go and beat Wrexham. 7 points from 3 games is a good return. It would feel like they've got a little bit of momentum behind them. So again, it's one of these draws. I think that probably it will be the Wrexham game and maybe a couple of results subsequently where we will fully decide if this was a good result. But certainly in the heat of battle, or after the storm, so to speak, after everything that Norwich City endured, it feels like a really good point in the circumstances. And it feels a little bit like robbery. It would have felt even more scandalous if they'd have won this game, really, in terms of the way that it went, because they did they did not play well in terms of their possession, their attacking stuff. That's the next bit that Liam Manning and his coaching team need to build. We need to see a bit more rhythm, a bit more style, a bit more purpose to their play on the ball. And if that comes, then there's some good foundations here that hopefully they can build upon. But they will only remain that until you do that, because what this team cannot be is it cannot be holding on for dear life once you've got yourself ahead and trying to see results out, because you're not going to win probably enough championship games to get them where they want to go. There needs to be a development. They need to go on a journey, and that is now the next aim for this Norwich team that has some very talented players in. And it was reduced to pretty desperate stuff at times, but they got a point. So that's the major positive, because if you look at every other statistic, I think they got absolutely battered in all of the others. Pinkin.com, of course, the place to go. You can go and read Liam Manning's assessment. You'll be able to watch that very shortly as well. I spoke to Jakub Medic after the game. We'll have all of the analysis and reaction to this game here at the CBS Arena across the weekend. We'll be at Carrow Road tomorrow for that women's game. Get yourself down to Carrow Road. Hope to see many of you there as well against Luton ladies. That's going to be a fantastic afternoon. And then we'll be back next week for that game against Wrexham at Carrow Road. From Coventry, from the Midlands, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you soon.